I'm going to review the Siglent SVA1015X Spectrum and Vector Network Analyzer. It's got lots of features, so make sure you check out the video and we'll go through them together. So this device has been lent to me by Rob, Tapaki Technologies, once again. Get hold of him if you're interested and you're in New Zealand. This has got so many features on it, it's actually going really hard for me to cover them all. There's a whole bunch of stuff on here which I have never used and don't know a lot about, so you have to excuse me as I'm trying to learn about these things myself at the same time. I'll give you some basic information here from what I've got noted down. It's got a touch screen, it does 9 kHz, 1.5 GHz, spectrum analysis, tracking generator built in as well. VNA is an option, distance to fault is an option, digital modulation analysis is an option, and EMI pre-compliance kit is also an option. It's got a built-in web server as well. In theory, we'll see how Safari goes. Safari tends to be a bit funny about stuff sometimes. Also, it's got LAN and stuff like that on the back. We'll look at that in a second. And as you can see, it's got a built-in tracking generator, so you can do some pretty cool stuff. Now, this has got most of the options in it, I think, if not all of the options already built into it. So this one here should be able to cover a lot of the information for you. You can do monitoring as well. It's got a little port down here. You can plug headphones in, so if you're doing demodulation, you can actually listen to the signals. It can be helpful. And basically, it is a 1.5 GHz spectrum analyzer with all the other features added into it. It's pretty cool. Honestly, I would buy this, but it's hard to justify it because I've already got 2 other spectrum analyzers. So let's move on. Let's have a little bit. Right, let's go through the front controls first, shall we? We have RF input, which is 50 ohms plus 30 dBm max with 50 volts DC max. So it actually allows for some DC input. It's tolerant of that. That's unusual for spectrum analyzer. Often they don't allow any DC whatsoever, so the fact it can do that is quite good. It's a nice safeguard. It means if you accidentally have something that's got a bit of a DC bias on it, you probably won't blow it up. A tracking generator output, which is used for a couple of tests, obviously tracking generator itself and some other stuff as well. You can do S11, S21 measurements as well, and does Smith charts and stuff like that too, I believe. I haven't found that yet, but you can do it apparently. So you've got preset, which you can do like your own preset if you want, if you've got one which you've already got saved. Or you can like factory defaults or whatever, or last used or whatever it can do. Just options in it. Tracking generator on and off. Trigger, sweep, bandwidth, trace detection, limits, demodulation, which is when it's using this port here. Inbuilt help, which is helpful. I haven't actually used it myself. I probably will need it actually, to be honest. So you go to various functions and you push the help button. It will tell you more about that function. Saving, file management, system and display controls. Mode, which is where you can choose the extra options if you're doing spectrum analyzer function, or the VNA or whatever you're doing. You can do it all through that button there. Markers, you can do automated marker tracking as well, so it finds a peak and it will follow that peak where that frequency goes. Measurements and measurement setup, so you can do various measurements on the frequency analysis. Auto tune, that's a really handy little thing. If you've got a signal which is of moderate amplitude, you can hit that and auto tune, it will find it really quickly and it will do a sweep across the whole range, find it and set itself up for that signal, so you can just push that button and find it really quickly. Very handy little feature. Also, you've got the amplitude, span, frequency controls. It's used to spectrum analyzers, will be used to those. Also, your keypad button here for various functions, entering numeric values. But as it is touch screen, you can do a lot of it on screen. I tend to still use the buttons. It's that habit, I think. Also, you've got soft buttons down the side for various menu options and selections as well. Multi-purpose dial and up and down buttons as well. So these can actually allow you to do steps in like preset amounts. So instead of like whizzing around for the dial for 5 minutes trying to get to a value or having to go to the keypad, you can just do that and that, and it will jump to the nearest preset values that you've got set up for it. Okay, that's the front. Also, you've got a USB port as well. So it has a USB stick option, so you can save stuff to the USB stick. On the back, so you've got the AC input there, external fuse, power options 100 volts to 240 volts AC, at 50 or 60 Hz, or 100 to 120 at 400 Hz. I don't know what country uses that. I should probably research that and find out which country that is, because it's odd. USB device, so you can actually use it, connect it up using like a USB-A to USB-B cable, so then it's connected to a computer system. You can use the same thing with the LAN as well. LAN obviously does the web interface as well. I think you can probably do the same for USB. But you can use LabVIEW software and iVita and stuff like that on it. Reference in, reference out, and trigger in. Now, reference in is auto detecting, so if you put a reference on there, it will switch from the internal reference to the external reference. And I believe the reference out will switch as well. I haven't tried it, but I believe that it mentions that if you have a reference being fed into that connector, it will also feed it back out of this one so you can daisy chain equipment. I believe that's what you can do. That's enough of that. Let's plug it in and power it up. let's turn it on, see how long it takes. Now this button has got like the usual Siglent heartbeat thing where it sort of pulses, but you can't see it on camera because I've got so much lighting here, so it kind of drowns those illuminated buttons out because this is so bright. I think normally under normal lighting it'd be okay. Right, let's turn it on and see how long it takes. A bit of time can be quite important to some people. Depends if you use it, you know, frequently or not. There we go. So that's about, say, 18 seconds. Yeah, about 18 seconds. That's not too bad, is it? So this just happens to be the last screen that I was using when I was playing around with it before. Let's start off with, do a preset. Let's start from the beginning. Alright, so there we go. Preset is basically set to do full span, center frequency at 750 MHz because it's obviously 1.5 GHz span or bandwidth option. You can do, you know, basic stuff like the frequency settings. You can bring up the keypad. So you can type it in manually, say for 100 MHz, 100 MHz, bang, done. And it automatically does a full span in that range. If you want to step up and down, you can do that instead using this button. In this case, it's jumping by 20. Alright, so you do that, or you can dial it as well. It should go up and up by ones at this current configuration. Start frequency, stop frequency, normal start frequency offset, which you're doing like if you're working with mixers and stuff like that, it's handy for that, so you can use it for offsetting that way. Don't have to do maths in your head then, or you get your calculator out and set the offset and off you go. Frequency steps, I can tell you that's for this button here. Right, so if I want to do a different frequency step, you can do it. It's currently set to automatic mode, manual if you want instead. And you can put in whatever steps you want. So if you want 50 MHz steps instead, 50 MHz. Let's now step by 50. Use that to get back out. That's actually a menu button up there too. So this is like a shortcut menu to everything as well. Easy to forget that's there. Signal tracking, so we were saying you can track the signals. So if you turn it on, it will track the peak signal and it will follow it around. So if you've got, say, I don't know, a 10 MHz peak, then it will sit on 10 MHz in the center frequency. And then if you drift that frequency up and down, it will stay in the centre and the whole bandwidth will shift around it instead. So it stays in the centre point. That's a handy feature if you're trying to monitor something which is jumping around. I don't know everything about this thing. I'm trying to show you what I can. Span, same deal. It's normal spectrum analyzer stuff. You know, you can set the viewing range. Again, this is currently steppable as well. 50 MHz span on that. Or you can do full span, which will just do the whole bandwidth of the whole unit if you're trying to find a signal. Zero span, I think that can be handy for some things. It's got a certain function that's used for. Can't think what it was. And you've got linear and logarithmic scale. If you do logarithmic instead, you get this kind of display instead. Now I did actually find a bug with this. I haven't met a replicator. I did it once. It's probably because I was doing something really weird with it, which nobody would expect because I'm trying to figure it out. I had some logarithmic scale set up on here, and I was doing something else, and I couldn't get rid of the logarithmic scale. It wouldn't go away again. Even if I put linear, it stayed there. It's a bit of a weird thing. I don't know how I triggered it. I don't know, but then I put preset, it went away again, restored back to normal, so it's fine after that. But I don't know what I did there. It would be nice to figure that out. Amplitude. So you got reference level stuff like this. It's currently reference at 0 dBm. You can wind up and down if you want to shift the range up and down. Attenuator setting as well. It's currently set to auto. You can do manual attenuation. You have to do 0 dBm. 0 enter. On the touch screen, you can do it on the keypad as well if you prefer. Right, so you're trying to measure low level signals, you might want to turn the attenuator off. Generally I'd say leave it on auto because yeah, auto, just probably better. Preamplifier, so again if you want to do, oops, one thing. If you want to try and measure a low level signal, you can got the preamplifier, you can turn it on, which will give you a better signal to noise ratio. You can actually bring things out of noise. That's where the bandwidth all comes into as well. Units, so you can set what kind of units measurements you're measuring here. So obviously dBm's like the default, but if you want to do something else, microvolts for example. Scales as well, so you can set the scale of the range. So 10 dB is the default, but you can change that to say 20 dB, so you can compress the scaling as well. So you can get a lot more range on display. But if you need to get in really close to something, you can also go down. Go down like 1 dB step on the scaling as well. And again, linear logarithmic scaling. Reference offset as well, so if you've got some circuitry in series with this, like an attenuator or something like that, you can actually allow for that, so you can calculate the actual value coming through, allowing for that attenuator or whatever else is in series with the device. It's got corrections as well. I haven't played with this, so I can't actually tell you what it does. What I do know about is the 75 ohm input correction. So you want a 75 ohm input instead of 50 ohm input. It doesn't actually change the impedance. It does still say 50 ohm. What that allows you to do though is if you've got a converter between 75 to 50 ohm converter on the input there, you know, you get those little things you can plug in which convert 75 to 50 ohm, you can put it on here and it will allow for it. And you can do conversion tables and stuff like that as well on here, but I don't know much about that. I'm sure there's lots of things in there which I just won't cover properly because I'm not that familiar with it, and it just does so much. So auto tune, you push that button, it automatically sets itself up as best it can, as long as it can find a signal which is strong enough to detect. Bandwidth settings, so you got RBW and VBW, so resolution bandwidth and video bandwidth, and it's also got a ratio setting here too. So you can adjust those up and down as you need, and it will obviously slow the sweep rate down, but gives you a much better signal to noise ratio. Depends on what your span is like. Now I've got a full span. So I've got a 10 kHz resolution bandwidth, and so I've now going to scan the whole 1.5 GHz range, which is why it's taken so long. But still, that is way faster than my other spectrum analyzer. Not too bad. Averaging type as well, I've got log power, power and voltage. Gaussian and EMI filter as well, so that may be helpful for something. I've got no idea. It's not what I do. Sweep settings, so you can just sweep time. Currently set to auto. If you reduce it, it's probably going to change the resolution bandwidth in response to that. Let's bring it down like this. It's quite a narrow setting. Let's do it this way. 1 second. There you go. Bang. Sweep roll with speed or accuracy. So I guess it depends on what you're trying to measure, whether it needs to be matter. And you do single sweep and continuous sweep. So if you do a single sweep, let's do one sweep and stay on the screen, which is what the trigger input can also be used for as well. So if you do a trigger, it will do a sweep. And you push that button as well to do a single sweep as well. So you can have it on continuous, just continuously sweeping by, and then you do a single, and just do a single capture and hold it on screen, which is handy if you're trying to capture a single event. Numbers, I'm guessing it's number of sweeps. If I do 2, enter. Yeah, there we go. Should say like sweep number or something instead, or sweep NO dot. It's not particularly clear, but numbers, so I've set it to 2 now, so now I'll do 2 sweeps and then stop. Okay, that's fine. That explains what that does. And sweep mode, I don't know, use that. And I'll just leave it alone. Triggering, free run, video trigger and external trigger. So you've got rising and falling edge settings on the external trigger. Tracking generator, currently turned off, turn it on. Tracking generator level. I wish that did exactly the same thing. It doesn't do exactly the same thing. I think you can go to 0 dBm. I don't think you can go any higher than that. No, 0 dBm is the maximum tracking generator. I'm not sure what the minimum is. So mine's 20 dBm as well. Tracking generator offset, which means you've got this device and test like attenuator example, then it also allows for that offset, you can fix that. Normalization, so when you have your device on a test hooked up, it will do a normalization level, so you get the standard levels for like your probe leads and stuff like that. If you've got 2 leads, you put them together, normalize it so it discounts your leads and your connections from the measurement, and then when you do it to your device on the test using the same leads, give you the actual result from the device, not from your leads. I have a normal reference level as well, so you can shift the thing up and down the screen. Reference position as well, same thing. Reference trace, you can do that as well if you say reference trace. So tracking you back off. Trace, so you got 4 traces available depending on what you're doing. Am I still on single sweep? I think I am, aren't I? Let's do a preset. So if I do trace B, it's blanked. Trace C is blanked. Trace D is blanked. Alright, so you're currently on showing 1 trace. If I do trace B, could do, I don't know, let's do minimum holding. And then trace C could be maximum. So that will give you that range there. Averaging as well, math functions, heaps of options in here. Things which I don't have a clue about. So, yeah, if you're into that sort of stuff, you probably know about it. You know, hopefully you can see it's there. And obviously if I was injecting a signal into this thing, it'd be a different story. You'd be able to see something on screen. Preset again, get that stuff turned off. Detection, so you have different detection types for each trace type, so you can set each one up as you need it. Alright, so positive peak is what the default is, pretty much. Averaging on the video as well. There's a quasi peak down there, which is greyed out. You probably don't know if you can see it on the camera or not. And again, you can push this to go to various functions as well, same as I'm doing over here. And one thing that's in this menu, but there's a save PNG right there too. So if you want to grab a screenshot, you can do that. Limits. So these are limit lines, I think. I don't remember. Demodulation, so this is the demodulate AM FM.
modulation, and you can adjust the volume here as well, so you can move it up and down in order to set the earphone volume. Earphone on off. I'm not quite sure you want to do modulation without the earphone turned on. I'm not quite sure what the story is there. There's probably a reason for it. AM and FM coupling. This covers the attenuator, resolution bandwidth, video bandwidth, and sweep time. So you can do it automatic in all of them, and it resets everything. And a little shortcut. Markers. Again, you can do one for each trace as well, and you can do different types of markers. You can move them around. Obviously, I don't have anything to look at right now on screen, so you can do a marker table. So any peaks it finds, it will display them on the list down here. So if you've got multiple, if you're trying to look at harmonics and stuff like that, it will tell you where they all are and what the levels are. Let's shift the marker around as well. So move the marker to shift center frequency. I'm not quite sure what that step is. I think it might shift the next step over. I'm not sure. Start frequency, so it goes to the beginning of the end. I don't know why you need to do that. And marker to reference, so it sets the reference up there. Peak, so you set the peak in the center. And you find the next peak as well, and left and right peaks. So if you've got, again, harmonic stuff like that, you want to jump to the peaks and see where they are. Continuous peak, so we'll just follow that peak around. It shifts the range depending on where that is. And then you've got a peak table as well, same thing as before pretty much. It will list you out where the peaks are and what frequency they are and the levels they're at. And it's got this search configuration. I'm not quite sure what this does. I guess it's for configuring what it considers to be a peak, how it actually does that searching. Marker function. So if you want to set markers up, you can do that too. It shows you where they all are, how many markers you want. There's 8 there, 8 markers. So you can put them and read the values and frequency, time and period readouts. You've got a frequency counter, which is just here. So wherever that marker happens to be sitting at, you will see the frequency. So show a theoretical frequency based on the center position, or it will show the actual frequency. System. Language, English, Chinese, that's what's got on this one right now. Power on preset, you can choose what it does when you turn it on and what happens when you push the preset button. So in my case, power on is last used settings, and preset is default settings. Got user configurations, factory reset, reset and clear, and power online, so enable and disable. I believe that means when your power comes on, it turns itself on. I've never tried it. I believe that's what it does. Interface, so you've got the LAN interface, which where you can figure out the IP address and stuff like that. If you put it on your network to look at it, I should actually probably set this up. So let's delete that. I want 5 dot. Let's do. Is there an extra space in there? Looks like it. Oh, let's do 55. Is it? No. Oh, I don't know how to set this. Here we go. I guess it's because I had the cursor over too far. It's not the best setup. I thought it would actually pop up a entry keypad rather than what it's done. 5, 2, 5, 4. That's my network stuff, so that'll do for that. And how do I say that? Probably enter over there, I'm guessing. Enter. Out. Does it save it like that? No, it hasn't saved it. Apply. I should really read it, shouldn't I? So IP address. If I do it this way, no. See, I don't like this interface here. This is not the easiest thing to use. I don't like that. I mean, obviously you get used to it, but it's not the most intuitive. Apply. Exit. LAN. Okay, now it's saved it. Alright. All those buttons are doing is jumping to each field. No, don't like it. GPIB, so you obviously set the GPIB number somehow in here. Oh, okay, backed out. Web server. So you set the port for web server 5900, interestingly. Set the password and view only. I'm not quite sure what view only does. Maybe it means no control, only viewing of the screen. Maybe there's no control option. Okay. Calibration. Auto cal. Don't know why it's disabled right now. It's probably doing something. System information. So there you go. EMI, AMK, TG,
DMA, DTF, VNA, AMA all turned on. So it seems to have all the options in it basically. So you load the options, which is where you put the serial numbers in, firmware updates, and system messages here too. So if you're doing something wrong with your settings, which I probably have been, then it will display errors there. Handy if you don't know what you've been doing wrong. Display, so you can change the brightness of the display, like the grid brightness, wind up a little bit so you can see it a bit better on screen, for example. Screenshot type, so normal or inverse, so it'll actually go white on black or black on white, depending on which way around you want it to be. Display line is literally a line that puts across the display just there, which you probably can't see too well. Wind up a bit, maybe you can see it moving up and down. And back off. Touch settings, so I guess you can turn the touch on and off. Touch assistant, I'm not sure what that's about. Screensaver always on, with a preset time. Tells you how to use that function. Swipe screen. Tells you how to use it. So I probably should read some of that myself too actually. Modes, this is where it tells you, what function you're using. So right now I'm doing spectrum analysis. And you've got modulation analysis. And you choose what kind of modulation you're trying to look at, ASK, FSK, AM and FM. So I'll do AM for example. You can set a bandwidth up for what it's actually looking for. 60 kilohertz is the minimum. Maximum is 1.2 megahertz. So it's supposed to capture your modulation. So it's got to be, I think I said twice your modulation width or something like that. Something like that. It's got averaging as well. Back to mode. FM is the same kind of deal. It's all the same kind of stuff. To get back to the other menu, I haven't found a way of going back like you expect to push that button there, you expect to go back to the previous menu, but you can't go back into mode and then back in the modulation analysis. So that to me is a little bit clunky. You notice maybe you can see it, maybe I'll do that, you can see that it lights up green. So when you're doing anything other than spectrum analysis, that lights up the show in different mode. Distance default. So it's actually looking at that one there. So you can hit this to something and you actually tell you how far away the end of the cable is, for example, until there's a break. It gets something, I'll plug something in. So I was going to plug a BNC cable on with nothing on it. So there we go, BNC cable. It's a 1 meter cable and this says measurement 1.07 meters. So it's telling you there that that's where the end of the cable is. And obviously these are reflections. So if you've got a system you're trying to measure and find out where the fault is, then that's handy for that. You can set distance ranges, so how far it actually wants to look for, meters and feet. Velocity factor, this is important if you're doing coax, because you need to know the velocity factor of the coax in order for it to give you the correct distance. 66% sounds like it's probably about right for this coax. But if you change that, it will change the distance. If I change that to be, say, 70%, it will change the meter reading, so it's now 1.13 meters instead. That's an important factor if you're trying to do that measurement. You have to know what the velocity factor is. Cable attenuation, so you have to allow for that too if you need to. Window, again, stuff I don't know a lot about. Calibration as well, so VNA. You notice it takes a little while to switch modes. When you push the button, it takes a few seconds for it to set itself up. So VNA, you see your S11 and S21 measurements, which obviously depends on whether you're using the IV input jack as well. Well, by both jacks really. I think for S11 you can just use one port, and F21 you need both ports to be used. So yeah, you can use that for VNA stuff too. I think you can do like Smith charts somewhere. It's under measure. There's a way of doing Smith charts. It's in here somewhere. I think it's under measurements. Oh, there we go. Under the measurement type. There we go. So there's a Smith chart there. Different chart types, depending on what you want to look at. This isn't something I'm that familiar with, so excuse my inability to explain it. SVA is a nice handy one as well. If you're doing measurement of antennas and stuff like that, do that for SVA measurements versus frequency, so tell you what reactive your antenna is. Phase measurements as well. It does so much stuff. It's just I know I've kind of skipped over some functions on this thing. That's because I just don't know them. Right? This isn't what I do. Yes, I'm reviewing a piece of test gear, but I'm not an expert on everything. It's just impossible to be an expert on everything. Don't forget, I'm just a YouTuber which gets the chance to review bits of gear from time to time. So please be gentle with me in the comments. I'll show you what you can do if I can. You know, if I can, I'll show you the features it has in the menus. It's up to you to decide whether or not it does what you want. All I can do is really show you what it has. I can't possibly show you absolutely everything because I'm just not that smart. I do want to demonstrate the tracking generator and the RF input. I do want to show you that part of it working and hook up to some circuitry. I've got like a CB radio here which I'll hook up, and I'll just tap into some of the circuitry in that radio and go through some of the filtering circuitry and just show what comes up. Could be interesting. It won't be powered up. It will also be passive circuitry, so it won't be 100% accurate to what it actually normally would be, but it'll give you an idea of what it can show you. So I think I'll do that. Okay, so I've set this up. I've stuck some probes on here going to this CB. I've currently got them linked together so I can do a normalisation on it. Now, because these are only 100 megahertz probes I'm using, obviously the bandwidth's going to be narrowed, but it's going to be fine for what I'm going to measure. So I've got it set at 50 megahertz with a 30 megahertz band, so 15 megahertz each way. It's probably not enough actually. Let's go a bit bigger. Let's go 50 megahertz. Okay, so let's go into the track and gen. Let's normalise this level because that's what I'm trying to do, is normalise it. Is that still enough? Maybe. But you can see the actual probes are affecting the reading there. I've got them set at times 10, not times 1, because it's normalised. Tracking gen is set at 0 dBm, so let's go minus 10 dBm. I should just wind it down like that, it might be easier. Okay, just so you can see the line there. Obviously these are having some reactive effects, so let's chuck this into the circuitry. So I'm just going to run through a couple of, basically through the filter circuitry in this radio. So it's the tuning circuitry in the RF section. And that's what we're getting out of it. So if I do a marker, bring a marker up. So I set the frequency as 50 megahertz. And it should be dipped down on that frequency, and then as you come along, we'll be up there, that's about 30 megahertz there, which is interesting. When we come along, it should be around 25 or so, 26. Yes, this is where it should really be tuned for, is over here. So what I might do here is actually look at the ranges here, adjust the scaling a little bit so we can see a bit more on scale. You know, 5 dB, that makes it a bit more obvious. Let's grab a screwdriver and we'll just play around with the adjustments and everything. This radio needs work anyway, so it doesn't matter if I mess them up. I'm going to recalibrate them anyway. So let's just adjust this one here. That's the 54 megahertz track that it's supposed to be anyway. There you go, you can see it's changing the waveform. So it's shifted it around a little bit. It's not the clearest, but it's doing it. Depending on where I hook up to as well, I'll get slightly different results. Let's adjust this one here, which is supposed to be for the actual RF section. Down there we go. Let's tune this one. As I'm winding it out, it's adjusting the response on that filter section. So this isn't actually how you actually tune it. You normally do this on actual RF output and not having a scope and stuff on the output and special analyzer to make sure they're tuned correctly. But this is just to demonstrate the effect of the filtering on the actual RF spectrum. So in some situations you want to make a filter and you need to tune it, then you could do this. You know, you could just set up this way, track and gen, and look what goes through. That just gives you an idea what you can do with it. This isn't obviously the ideal thing to work on for that, but it's just a demonstration. Right, so this is the web interface for the SVA1015X. Now I'm going to show you across 3 different browsers how this thing works. Now, as predicted, Safari is probably the worst. So obviously I'm using a Mac, a PC might be less problematic, I don't know. But so you've got the main page here which shows you this basic information. LAN configuration, so obviously the IP address configuration we've got set up on my network. Don't really care about that. And this is instrument control. Now Safari is extremely laggy. Basically don't use Safari. This is my feedback on this. that is several seconds behind now. The more you click, the more laggy it gets. But it is displaying in the right place on the screen. You know, so where I'm clicking is actually where it's registering the click. Alright, so it does get there. If you go to full screen, try and go full screen, and actually zooms it in a bit too far for my liking, but I think it's, yeah, and then it just does this weird thing here like this. Just, no, just exit full screen. In Safari, forget it, it's absolutely useless in Safari. That's probably more of a Safari thing than anything else. Don't go there. And again, there's no back instrument, and there's no way of going back to that menu. You can't, there's no back button, you can't go back to the menu. It's just, if you want to go back to the menu, you have to come back over here. Delete all this stuff. Oh god, now it's doing something else. Google, good old Google. Safari is wonderful, isn't it? Right, so yeah, why can't there just be a button to go back to the menu? I mean, so much hassle it was. Anyway, so you got these skipping commands, and I can't put it bloody are, but in the help screen on the unit, it actually tells you what the skipping commands are and various functions. So if you push help and push the button for that function, it'll tell you what the skipping command is to activate it. So, alright, so we'll forget about that one. That's rubbish. Next is Firefox. We'll have a look at this. So, same buttons, same deal. Right, instrument control again. But it's much more reactive. Now the only problem is with this is that it doesn't actually click where you click. So if I'm clicking here, it's not clicking there, it's clicking somewhere else. The targeting is wrong. So you have to do full screen. Then where you click, it will work. So you have to be in a full screen mode, otherwise it's just no good. Alright. As long as you're in full screen, it works fine. But to me, it's not exactly great. It's off the bottom of the screen here, I can't see it. Okay, let's exit full screen. And then shrink it down. Here we go. Now can I click it? No. I click something else. So I'd say my opinion is doesn't work. So I'm not happy with that. I've already communicated this with Siglent, one of the other bits of gear. It wasn't working very well on that interface as well. Can't remember what it was now, but you have to be wary of. So okay, Firefox, same deal. Chrome. Let's see how Chrome goes. Let's go back to nothing. Let's click over here somewhere. No? Can I full screen it? Yes. Right, now we'll try clicking. Okay. So Chrome looks pretty responsive. Right? Chrome actually seems slightly better than the others as far as reactivity. So it responds pretty quickly. And all displays on screen. So my recommendation is that if you're going to do this on a web server system like this using the computer, you have to use Chrome. Chrome seems to work fine. I haven't seen any problems. It's still got that missing, you know, it needs like a exit back to menu thing. And you also got this little shortcut menu down here too, which can be handy, but preset. I don't know if you can click and drag, can you? Oh, maybe you can. Let's try dragging. Well, something's happening. Yeah, you can. You can click and drag to change the display as well. Haven't tried that before. So that's pretty interesting. It works best in Chrome. Don't use Firefox, don't use Safari. I don't know about Edge or any of the PC versions. They may or may not be okay. You have to try that yourself if you get one of these units and let us know. But Chrome on Mac seems to be the best. If I shrink it down, can I still click? No. So you get that thing where once you're in full screen, you can't get back out of full screen because you lose the icon and you end up just like shrinking the view down. So the web interface, yes, there is a web interface, but I have to say I don't like it that much. I mean, yes, it works, but Depends what you're using it for. If you're trying to control the device from here, I'd say don't bother, just control the device. But if you're trying to get like a screenshot on a computer or something like that, and you need a decent high resolution picture of it, maybe, I don't know. Or if you want to just tweak some settings from remotely, maybe, but in my opinion it's like a beta web interface to me. It's like a beta version because it doesn't work properly. It needs some more work. I'm sure that'll get better in time as they do more firmware updates, stuff like that. They'll refine it. I've already told them about issues on the other device, whatever that was. I can't remember what it was, and I'd actually check it out and have a look. So hopefully I'll consider that option now. That's that. So I'm going to view it. No, maybe it just doesn't. I'm guessing. That's a bit shit. I'll do it again. It's a little bit disappointing, really.